good.
I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. We are short Peter, our staff member right now, but he'll be here in just a little bit. We got held up in traffic. So let's go ahead and, I guess, has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda? We don't do paper agendas at the meeting, but we do
I need to look at
Yeah, those electronics.
online ones, so make sure everybody had a chance to see it.
I did look at it, but I need to look at it.
You're not sharing?
Well, I mean, I
I'm
just,
just kidding.
if everybody really needed to see a paper agenda, I might be able to get them.
Oh, there's, yeah, the
I could definitely make you one.
There's something wrong with this committee printing paper agenda.
I know.
Yes, there is.
Oh, yeah.
All right. All right. Does anyone have any issues with the agenda? Everything look okay? All right.
That's
deal.
good.
Let's move forward. We're going to kind of do this a little backwards than we would normally do. Peter's going to talk in a little bit when he gets here, and Aubrey's going to do a slideshow. But until they get here and want to run the equipment, we're going to just go to the last things on the agenda, which is under the announcement section. Aubrey had a discussion he wants, and what we're going to do is add this to our next meeting's agenda, but talking about the certified wildlife habitat community.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to start off with you, if that's okay.
Start off with that?
Yeah, because we're not here, Peter's not here yet, so he's got to run the technology for all the other things in the meetings.
Well, the two things, that what I'm planning to do is show some outdoor photos, primarily from Pinnacle Prairie, which is the biggest coup we made with the certified habitat community honor. The biggest thing we've gotten so far is Pinnacle Prairie. And for, let's see, 2010 now. How long has that been? Or 11, 10. Anyway, 4.5 years or something since we got that honor. We should be adding more yards and even things similar to Pinnacle's land, where there's some big factories in Springdale that actually have started managing their prairie land that's associated with the grounds around it. Most of them have big pieces of land that they are using to mow and nothing else. And so I'm hoping that we could just get, if each of us would get one or two people to actually start to think about doing their yard. And it's pretty simple, really. You start planting native plants, including native grass, and you make a list of the trees in your yard that are native species and the flowers that you're growing and those things. I bet you've got your yard done, right?
I did, yeah, I got it done when we did.
So it's every one of them, they don't have to be big. Something the size of this room would be a big one, in fact, if you can set aside that much space on your property and actually make it natural. So it costs, what, $25 to enroll, and
20, I can't
20
remember.
or 25, and same amount to do the sign.
Yeah, the signs, if you're gonna
Want the sign.
which, yeah, it's extra.
And you can get fancy signs. I remember
You know,
somebody's got one that cost $150. It's bigger, it's set in concrete or something, it's really nice. But these are just on a stand, you know. And if you've been to a lot of the parks, you've seen the parts of the park where they put in a certified habitat.
And the schools.
sign. And the schools, yes.
Schools
A
also.
bunch of schools.
Lots
have
of
it.
the schools have them.
But we haven't been doing enough, and I, take my portion of the guilt in that I haven't been out hustling the way I thought I would, because you've got to talk to people and hand them little flyers, which we can get more of the old ones, or we can possibly get some new ones done, updated. But
I
that,
think when Terry Lane rotated off, we kinda lost our champion and nobody.
We did.
that's right, nobody wanted to take full responsibility for it.
We did.
And that, it's a tough thing. And I know lots of places that qualify that haven't got the certification. You know, private yards that are bigger than this, run by a great amount, and have magnificent gardens with native plants, and they just haven't signed up for it.
It's just, you just have to say that you've got cover and water and
Right,
like
cover,
4 or 5 things you check off.
and almost everybody has
Right.
what they're asking for. It's pretty easy to do. We could start with everybody on the committee.
Yeah,
You know,
if
if
you
you
haven't
haven't, if you
done
have
it,
not
look
become,
into it.
your yard is not a certified wildlife habitat, then, it's, because I thought, oh my gosh, I couldn't possibly do that, and Terry said, go online to, and it's,
National Wildlife Federation.
yeah, National Wildlife Federation, and, look at what you need to have a certified wildlife habitat. And I had to bring in little saucers so the little critters could get water that on the ground. I had bird baths, but, you know, so it was, and I had everything else, shelter and native plants and things like that. And I mean, it's easy and it's fun, and, that would be a good start right there. Just everybody on here. And if, like, I've already got mine certified, so my job would be to find somebody else. So if every one of us got one person, either ourselves or somebody else, we'd have a start.
And I do volunteer to lead seed collecting, because I have lots of places in mind where we can get some native flower seeds and even native grass. If we did it right now, we could get several species of native grass seed from Pinnacle Prairie without going all the way to Woolsey or anywhere like that. It's a mile and a half from here to Pinnacle Prairie. And so,
How big is Pinnacle Prairie, do you know?
10 or 12 acres, and maybe not that much of it's managed that way. So,
Can you tell the people who may not know where it's at?
Oh,
That may
okay.
be watching where that's at?
if you know where Pinnacle Food Company's factory is on 15th Street, which used to be Campbell Soup, and the stream that runs off of there from several directions, we called it Soup Branch, because there's a story from 40 years ago or 30-something that they once had a spill and soup went down the stream, and but it's a pretty clean stream, and it holds water on the land, and it soaks in there. It's doing all the stuff that you're trying to get bigger places to do, and trying to restore former prairie. Just about anything that was prairie in the past and has been either a hayfield or a cattle feeding area will become prairie again if you go about 2 years of mowing only in the winter. Now, at Woolsey Wet Prairie and Lake Fayetteville Prairie Restoration Area, they spend a minimum of $5,000 on having a team come from Oklahoma who are certified to burn it off. Well, you don't want to burn off your yard in your neighborhood. You wouldn't be popular because of that hurry. But by mowing it only in the summer, you can get rid of the fescue and
Only
the
in the
non-native grass.
Only in the winter, right?
In the winter.
In the winter.
And Pinnacle Prairie management, I mean the Pinnacle Food Management guys are going to mow sometime in November. last year we missed the period when it started raining. It'd been dry, and I called over there one day, I couldn't get a hold of the guy. And the next thing I know, it was raining cats and dogs, and it kept on till, what, July? And so, it was way late, but that, it just makes it all new again. Everything, you don't want to take down all the trees, like willow trees and the button bushes, and a lot of beautiful things that should not be burned off or even mowed down or brush hogged in the winter. But the majority of space where you've got little cedars coming up, well, cedars are good, they're good habitat. There's a butterfly, beautiful butterfly that only grows on a cedar tree. I mean, caterpillars have to have a cedar tree to grow. Yeah, it's just like monarchs have to have milkweed plants to grow. Their caterpillars will not happen without it. So, anyway, it's just a lot of fun and interesting thing to be involved in, and I do want to show some slides to show what's important about it.
I wonder if we know how to turn this projector on.
You know, there's a thing back there, and
I think it's right here. It comes falling down from the ceiling.
oh, okay, but where do we put the DVD in? Back here?
It all goes.
Make your computer easier to use. Windows will read and
I
scan
didn't
this
mean to
list
do that.
automatically.
I got that on.
Press the space bar to select the highlighted option.
I don't know what I did right or wrong.
That was me. I double
Missing
tapped
a
the
lunch.
space bar and started talking.
So there you go.
Hear text on screen. Read
No,
aloud narrative.
I'd rather not, thanks.
So have you guys ever eaten?
Sorry, y'all, I would know how to use this, but I just,
Great.
I don't know how to read it.
Wonderful.
That's awesome. Hard to find a seat if you go at the wrong time.
Really?
Mhm.
Well, I guess, we went during the week, and,
Yeah, during the week it's always open. Great. I hear there's no which side.
Well, here's
Well, I'm not sure that
Yeah.
he's got signal coming out of the
Yeah,
computer yet.
me
Well,
either.
although obviously it's on.
Yeah, I like to look at Cafe a lot.
so I first time just to run.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So it's on.
There you go, Aubrey. Somebody's gonna have to log in.
Okay, but I still don't know how to
Throw out the lid.
open the...
Oh, where's the delete key on this keyboard?
Right here.
Oh, thank you.
So, is this what you use?
Now let's see what it does.
Have others of you done the wildlife habitat?
I did my yard back,
Your yard.
Terry got me to do it before I was on the committee.
Yeah, I did mine too. I'm interested in networking with yard people about water, because water was a big predicament in my setup until I made this discovery. And I don't know for sure if it's legal.
But you're gonna tell on television what you do.
Well, yeah.
We have some apps.
Take one, pass it down, and just pass it
I'll
around visually.
go around and
Okay.
pass them out.
Is it on the computer in the back?
Yeah, as far as we know.
Yes.
What is this?
This is American basket flower seed.
Oh, yay.
And if we get to see the slideshow, we'll see some pictures of American basket
Well,
flowers.
your milkweed came up.
So
I loved
this
it.
is fresh, and John Rule just sat here and put these in small packages for you.
Can you plant them now? Aubrey, can you
Mhm.
plant them now?
Yeah. You can plant them now, but, I would recommend, from my experience, plant some now, but keep a bunch cold.
Thank you, Aubrey.
In the refrigerator,
Thank you.
not necessarily frozen, but in a refrigerator through the winter. It's in there.
I was thinking this, I put it in the slide.
Something.
Are you familiar with these things?
Right.
Me neither. Are you familiar with these things, Richard?
They look familiar, but I can't remember the plant.
He said basket.
Oh, really?
Basket flower, but I don't know what
This
it looks
one?
like.
Flattest idea.
But your other one,
Seems like I've picked these out of my sweater.
Oh,
That's what I was
something.
thinking.
Are these the ones that are all over the place right now? They're sticking to everything, but they're actually.
I may have just given you guys
Oh.
milkweed seed. I thought
Oh,
I'd
good.
brought.
I'm gonna look at it anyway.
Oh,
Okay, so it's milkweed seed. Wonderful.
Which,
Good. I
which file
love
do you need them to
milkweed
open,
seed.
Aubrey?
Which file is it on?
Just go to the top of the, oh, you can do it from the top there.
It's in file called chosen,
Mm-hmm.
in that file,
Mm-hmm.
file
Is it in that folder, or is it one of the,
folder.
I think he's
Which one
gonna
is it?
scroll through all the pictures in the folder probably.
Yeah, these are individual things.
Oh, they're individual pictures?
Yeah,
like, double click on one of those, and then you might be able to just arrow forward.
yeah,
Should be able to.
yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Oh. Decline.
Oh, it wants to update.
Oh, we do want to decline.
Came up behind it, there you go.
That's what,
There.
I guess we do.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, that is,
Yeah.
Still connected to?
that's called sand milkweed, and it's got see the long feelers? That's called a longhorn grasshopper, and it's a young one, which might be classed as a nymph. And the, milkweed is the Asclepias. What do we call it, John Rule?
What's that, cereal?
No, that's not cereal, that's,
That's common,
well, these seeds I've given you guys, they're common milkweed seeds. I thought I had brought basket flower seeds. I've got a good many of these too. Anyway, that milkweed blooms in late spring, but it's available, has big leaves, and it feeds monarch caterpillars from the first generation that comes back from Mexico. This will be one of the species that they'll see.
Try right, left.
Oh, right,
Yeah,
left.
see if that'll do it.
There you go.
There
Okay.
you go.
This one is called purple milkweed. Looks pink, doesn't it?
It does.
But purples and pinks on flowers, the names are never exactly what you see is not what they are called necessarily. And that's a tiny skipper. Skippers are similar, they're butterflies, but they look a little more like a moth. They're all skippers are fairly small, and they have different feelers, different wing configurations, and so forth. But that one would be about the size of your thumbnail in reality. And this is a female goldfinch photographed on September the 3rd. That's a basket flower,
Oh.
and she's been pulling the seeds out. They're about the size of the ones you've got here, but these are not really them.
They look like tiny black beans.
Yeah.
They're basket flower seeds, and there are more in the husk than you believe, and if you keep working on the husk, eventually more will come out after you've given up. They produce quite a lot, really.
And you see the birds on them, they will work on one plant a good while, but they don't probably get down, like John says, they don't get all the seeds out of a basket. So it might be 20 or 30 in one of those baskets. I've never actually counted how many are in them. But anyhow, you know goldfinches, there's a possibility this is a male, because I'm not Joe Neal and I can't tell you which it is. The reason I can't tell is September the 3rd, the males that were out there in their bright yellow colors have started to molt and change. So the male's going to look pretty close to what the female does in the wintertime. Okay, this is a thistle. Now, you see the dangerous spikes on those leaves, and you know to be careful there. And that is, John, can you tell me which species of
The thistle?
no, of it's a swallowtail butterfly. I'm not sure which one, because a bunch of them are black with blue and orange spots like that, but the arrangement's different. And each of those species has a different host plant. See, this is not... Here you are.
Would there be a red spotted purple?
No, a red-spotted purple. That's not really a swallowtail.
No.
But this one
That's true.
could be a black swallowtail,
Yeah.
or it could be a spice bush swallowtail.
Hey, Aubrey,
And
are these all from Pinnacle? Or-
Yeah.
Okay.
All of them are within a very short walk of my house.
Isn't that a extremely controversial plant?
What, the thistle?
Even beyond,
This is a U.S. native thistle. This is not the one that the government outlawed for cattle farmers or anybody to have in their pastures years
this
ago.
is milk thistle.
No. This is a good thistle. And the way you can tell that is if you turn a thistle leaf up, the bottom of it is white. You may tell that a little bit there. But on a bull thistle or the other, there are two species, I believe, of non-native thistles, and they have green on both sides, top and bottom of the leaves. So this is also, in addition to being useful for nectar for the butterflies, the birds eat the thistle seeds. Some of you have feeders may have bought thistle seeds. Well, you can just pick them in the wild, and if you want to get out and find those places.
Are the flowers the same on the good ones and the bad ones?
No, there are differences. I don't have pictures of the bad ones here, just on purpose, because I don't love them. Okay, this is called an Illinois bundle flower. That flower is not a whole lot bigger than your thumb either. These are wildly blown up and zoomed up on and so forth. And you see you can tell by the leaf structure that it is in a category of plants that include peas and beans and legumes. And that's not all that rare here on the open prairies and around the old farms and stuff, but it's certainly not in everybody's garden, and it's a beautiful little flower. Okay, this is a monarch caterpillar. It's on another species of milkweed. It's on the Asclepias tuberosa. This is also known as butterfly weed, but it's butterfly milkweed. And you can see that big old caterpillar, who's only about the length of your little finger in reality and no bigger around, is eating off the flower area. Those caterpillars will eat every part. If there's not but one milkweed plant there and there's one caterpillar, it'll try to eat it all till it gets, a moment comes after a couple of weeks of eating that it just becomes a chrysalis. It hooks itself up on a stem and curls up, and then if you watch it for 2 or 3 days, suddenly you'll come back and look, and it's this shiny thing hanging there. Beautiful. And I may have a picture of one of those on here. This is senna, and these are fairly small flowers, beautiful native plant. The way you can tell it's a small one is that ant is like your little fingernail. And so, of course, this is a cropped photo, and I try to shoot them up close or zoom in from a distance, whatever it takes. Anybody know what flower that is? goldenrod. There are
It's
many
goldenrod?
species of goldenrod, and in Arkansas, you'll see ones that bloom early and late are different, and they have different configurations of the heads. This butterfly is a member of the American lady, maybe, or what's the other lady? Anyway,
Painted lady?
painted lady or American lady. They're very similar. They are different. If I had the two of them together, we could talk about the differences. But anyway, that one, I'm not sure what their host plant is, but all these butterflies that you see and all these little moths and all, they have different host plants in so many cases. I think that's maybe the same type butterfly, and it's on a
Buttonbush?
buttonbush, thank you. I depend on the audience here.
We were giving those away at farmer's market this week.
Huh?
We were giving button bushes away
Uh-huh.
at farmer's market. Yep.
Nice.
And there are strips of these on Pinnacle Prairie there where you can tell the old flow of the water was off of the mountain over to the to the southwest and northwest. The water flows into one little stream through there. It meets, actually the streams get together, part of them do in World Peace Wetland Prairie, which is just to the east toward Duncan Avenue. So these are things, my dad called them button willows. John, did your dad?
Down in the south part of the state, they grow actually in the water, and that we always call it button willow. Up here in my area where the steep mountains lie, they grow usually on rock ledges where water dribbles down and so forth. They stay beautiful for quite a long time.
Yeah, they bloom in July into August, maybe in June into late July. It depends every year on the rain and so forth, how long they stay in bloom, I think. Okay, this is in the sulfur family, probably called a cloudy sulfur. You can see the yellow tells you it's a sulfur butterfly, and it's also on a milkweed. That's the good thing about milkweeds. They don't just feed the caterpillars of monarchs. They also provide nectar for many species of butterflies and bees. There's a doe with her fawn. That doe actually had two fawns. She's had two fawns for, I don't know, at least 5 years that I've known she did. And sometimes, they'd both be with her, and I'd get a shot, but this is about as good. This one should be about as good as I can do, because they tend to run off. But I'm zooming from like 80 feet or so to get that picture.
Wow.
So,
I had seen them over on South College by my place.
yeah, they run up and down the streets of Fayetteville. They're not a rare critter anymore. A lot of people have pictures of them in their backyard.
They're running out of spaces to go.
Yeah.
They live back
But that is the thing about Pinnacle and World Peace Wetland Prairie. All the land around there has been developed. I mean, all these apartments in all directions, but just these small areas where you have the good soil and the native plants and some shade trees, that's where the deer need to be. Okay, this is a plant that looks much like a milkweed. It is a dogbane. It's related to the milkweed. But it's in the cannabis family. Never heard of anybody misusing it, but that's about a good close-up as I ever get of those. You can see the inside of the tiny flowers, and of course that skipper up there is little more than thumb size, so you can imagine those flowers are really, really tiny. But that plant does not feed monarch caterpillars, but there is a butterfly and a moth, both, that I know do actually use it as a host plant for their caterpillars. Can't name them right now. This is a tall silphium plant. It may be, I'm not sure, we'd have to see the leaves so I remember which one it was. But anyway, this is actually growing out there, and it's got a female monarch butterfly. Anybody know how you tell a male?
No.
Well,
There's swollen areas in one of the vertical lines on the lower wings. And, you see a fat area on two different lines, which the male has, according to our expert, Aubrey Shepherd.
no, I've learned that
According
from
to the book.
real experts. But it's the pheromone with which he attracts a mate. So the male will find some nice milkweed plant and hang around it, maybe nectar on something nearby, like this one's nectaring on this tall silphium plant. And the females come to find them. And if they do, you get caterpillars. And this is a white version of a normally pink native wildflower, and so it's pretty rare. And on Facebook, people say, "Oh, is that really white?" Yes. And a lot of those grow on Pinnacle Prairie, and you don't see them on a lot of places that have the same species. And I just can't think of the name of it right now. I should have my script. Okay, this little guy, you can notice there is evidence that it is a young male. His tail is behind a basket flower plant, and he's probably at least 80 feet away, and zoomed up and then cropped it some to get him. But we had a big crop of boxes in Fayetteville this spring, or this summer. This is the American basket flower, which next month I'll bring actual seeds for. And that's a honeybee. And you know how big honeybees are, so you can guess that flower is not as big as that. But actually, a lot of the basket flowers, when you do get them, they will, when they're spread like that, they will be as wide as my hand. And so, with my hand open like that.
And you said they retract the petals.
Oh, that's right. Well, maybe we'll run over one here in a minute. But anyway, what John's talking about is they go back down into the basket at night, and they look like a shaving brush.
Huh.
Really, some of them are called shaving brush plants by some people. But then, after about 3 days, they get so they can't come back out fully. They just flop over and then go through different stages. So, but by evening, they'll nearly all be back in the thing, the ones that are in full bloom. So the good news is this year in the place that I've been collecting seed, we actually had a constant change. You know, one area you'd see the same flowers if you went next day, but then 2 days later there'd be some new ones doing the same thing, and it's delightful. Okay, this honeybee is having the juice removed from his body. John, what do we call those spiders?
Oh, gross.
Crab spiders.
Crab spiders, yes, sir. These spiders.
They're dueling over the nectar or what?
Spider murder?
Huh?
Is this a murder scene here?
It's a murder scene, yes. It's the way he gathers his food.
Oh,
And you look at the back, his back up there, and it looks like a face, a little skull. It
does.
makes him look dangerous, doesn't it?
Well, I think he is, the honeybee anyway.
The honeybee bush that never.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, the honeybee doesn't like him.
But they'll catch any insect that gets close enough, if they can, and they hide quite well. They look yellow on yellow flowers, usually. So this one didn't know what to do to try to get to be red. This is, see the way out there, the back leg? That's, thank you, John. Leaf-footed bug. And those also are predators, I believe. Some of them, and that one's on the same kind of plant we started off with, the Asclepias amplexicaulis milkweed, called blunt leaf or clasping leaf or sand milkweed. You know what that is?
Hummingbird.
You don't see them sitting still very often.
Oh, I do.
That one's hummingbird, probably 70 feet from my backyard fence on World Peace Wetland Prairie, and he just posed for me, and so we don't see the flapping wings or any of the wonderful things that you see in a lot of pictures.
Newton County called them homingbirds.
Hominy.
They had one that would fly in and drink from a little cup on their,
Oh, yeah.
above their fireplace.
Yeah.
In the house.
They didn't have any screens in the house or anything like that.
Well, there's a milkweed tussock moth. You see how it looks like it's made out of thread by some wonderful seamstress put that creature together and stuck it up on that stem of that plant. But this tussock moth eats milkweed foliage just as the butterfly, monarch butterfly caterpillars do. So this one, by now, I imagine, has made a chrysalis and has become a, well, this has been several weeks, so it should be flying off by now. But it's a beautiful moth, too. John, what do we call these things? Anybody know?
Praying mantis.
Is that a
Yes.
I see him now.
Yeah, they disguise pretty well in different colors of foliage, and that's on bone set. And that guy is large, but probably 5 inches long or something.
Do they have eyes?
Do they have what?
Eyes?
Yeah, they're,
Yeah, their heads will turn, they'll follow you and look at you.
if you look there out
I'm
to
trying
the
to see
extensions on the
side.
right,
Yeah,
he's looking
I see.
right at us.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
I see.
These pictures needed more adjustment to show on this with the light on it. Okay, this is swamp milkweed. It's Asclepias incarnata. And this dragonfly,
12-spotted dragonfly.
how many?
12, I think.
Okay.
12 spotted dragon.
3 on each wing.
Okay, it's a nice one. Pretty pale picture. Anybody know what flower this is?
It's beautiful.
Well, you see that there's a flower fly on this thing, and it's probably quarter-inch long. They're called hover flies, and they do everything a bee does except make honey. Of course, and they don't sting, yeah. But they are native pollinators that were here, hundreds of species in the United States, and they pollinate things just like, bees are brought in from Europe. I mean, the honeybees were brought in from Europe. Our bumblebees are natives, and there are native tiny bees. Some of them you can hardly see. And same with these flies. Some of them are that long, some of them might be half-inch long. But that flower
Fog fruit or?
Fog, I think,
Okay.
What is it?
fog fruit.
Fog fruit.
And it grows with its little roots in the edge of a pond or along a stream that doesn't flow too fast. And it'll grow in your yard if you've got some nice dark soil and water it a little bit now and then. So it's tiny, but it's beautiful when you find them. This butterfly it's either a comma.
Or a question mark.
That's right. So it's a question mark to me which one it is. They're very similar, and only the trained individuals, well-studied individuals, can tell them easily apart. It's because of some little marking that's different on them. One thing looks like a question, looked that way to some scientist who was naming them, you know. Okay, there's a tiny butterfly at the top. That's in the hair streak family. And anybody know what flower this is?
Ladies' dresses or something?
No, this is a big flower. This is a tall prairie flower.
I can cheat a little bit. You know, the very top, some of your file names have the plant name in them.
Oh yeah, obedient plant with a hair streak. I didn't notice I had that. Well, they may all have. A lot of them do. But obedient plant is named that or called that because if you bend it, or if a bird lights on it, tries to peck around or something, and bends it over, it'll stay that way. It obeys you. So you can make them look really funny. You go sometimes and the rain's done it or something, and hard rain. But you could use it as a signal. I'm going this way to your friend that's out there in the tall grass with you. And bend one every few yards or something. This is a native orchid. We're still out at Pinnacle Wet Prairie. And it's a fringed orchid group. I forgot. Let's see, what do I say up there? Okay, a ragged. It's up in the corner, guys. A ragged fringed orchid. I got a lot of pictures of those this summer. I think last year maybe I didn't get any pictures of them, but the year before I did. It's just hard to find them in tall grass. If you don't just, I guess you can GPS them if you're really a smart character, but I don't know how to.
Some of those plants are biennials, and they only bloom every other
Well,
year. I don't know about this, but
That's possible in this case, but I think I just missed it. But it's great, and if you see them on my flicker set and places like that, you can blow them up almost this big on whatever screen you've got, and you can see them a lot clearer. Okay, 2 young robins, I think. Cardinals, they turned out to be. Yes, cardinals, thank you. Anyway, that's about that's up there.
And there it is.
Yeah, that nest is, I don't know if that's a last year's nest. I don't think it was this summer. So I think I know where I made it. And that was covered up by other things this year. See somebody out there?
Yep.
Okay, this is on Pinnacle Prairie. That's the fence you see at the left over there. That's Pinnacle Foods Plants fence. And he or she, can't tell on Canada geese too easily, but is actually in a flow that comes down, one of the flow areas I was talking about, so that he was, or she was wet in the water and was not actually sunk in the snow. Okay, this grasshopper, you call these longhorns. You see the long going out to your right, the feelers, as I would call them, antennae. Is that the word, John? And that one is eating the seed pod, or eating a seed, a milkweed seed. You can see it in his pinchers there in its mouth. And that was on Pinnacle Prairie a couple of years ago or so. And I just love that picture. But that's the tall green prairie milkweed, Asclepias hortella. And it's one when I complained a while back about the mowing that was done out by the drive-in theater on 112. Well, there was a whole field of this particular milkweed. I mean, there's hundreds of plants, probably thousands in this few acres right next to and around on both sides of that theater. And they mowed them when it finally quit raining. They were beautiful out there, and I was saying, all the monarchs are going to have milkweed on this field. It was all down suddenly after a week with no rain. There's somebody lurking to mow things. Can't wait. Okay, passion flower. You're familiar with the purple one?
Yep.
The other one's called yellow. The purple one's on a leaf of the purple one, and it's much larger, just as you can see there, and I just squeeze these together. But the other one's a vine too, but you see above the yellow one, there's the foliage up there. See, it's a smaller indentation, where it's pretty big leaf compared to the flower. Both of these are host plants for Gulf fritillary butterflies and variegated fritillary butterflies and some other species. So they're important to grow, and they're the ones that have the purple one has these big things called maypops. Your grandpa or somebody in the family probably used to eat them. They taste okay. They just have a lot of seeds inside. And the other one has a tiny, tiny little seed that not worth trying to eat, because you know there's a seed in that berry and you can't even bite it. But if you plant them, they grow. And this frog is on what I talked about a while ago.
Goldenrod.
It's up at the top.
Yeah, I cheated.
That's a pretty small tree frog, and I got very lucky that day to get that tree frog about this big and make him look that big. I probably made 50 pictures of him, and I never could decide which one I liked the best. Okay, we're back to the first. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Aubrey.
Any questions about all that?
I've got a question.
Yes.
So we've got a area over at Butterfield Trail Elementary School that Dana Smith, former EAC member, we got together and thought we'd try an experiment, and it didn't really work. But it's the stormwater retention area, so we turned it into a no-mow zone. And we got with the district maintenance and put up some signs and just had them quit mowing it. And we were hoping it would magically turn into some cool prairie, or something. But it's just real weedy. Now there's a few flowers and things that bloom, but we didn't know what we were doing, so we've never really managed it. We just let it sit there. So we probably need to go in there and mow that sucker really short this winter.
In the winter.
And then should we help it along by seeding it with something? What should we do to try
Get
to?
some more native plant seeds.
Because right now we've not done anything.
Yeah, plant those milkweed seeds.
Yeah.
But yeah, we could use some guidance on how to try to make something out of that so it looks more impressive than a bunch of weeds.
Well, if you may have some weeds that are valuable natives too.
Well, probably. I don't
in the
know.
batch, but if they're not flowering, you can't tell easily.
Yeah, I kind of watched it throughout the year and took a few pictures, and it just nothing was ever impressive. There's a few things that flowered, but I guess we'd like to maximize it to make it more impressive so people would pay attention and realize that it's there for a purpose and not just a big weedy patch, But so yeah, we might talk afterwards.
Okay.
Give me some tips.
Anybody else? Question?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Aubrey. And we'll have your announcement at the end for next time. But I know Peter has an update on the invasive species policy. We do. And since he made it back from Buffalo, we're all pretty jealous. We were talking about you.
Yeah, I apologize for being late. We had our timing worked out. We were coming back from Gilbert, and we stayed 3 nights out at Gilbert over the weekend.
Wow.
In a little cabin, did 2 little short day trips, kid-friendly day trips on the river, and then went for a hike at Tyler Bend today. nice overlooks of the river. And on the way back, there was an accident on Highway 65 south of Harrison, and we were stopped for at least a half hour just sitting there waiting. A couple of cattle trucks and several vehicles involved. It looked like that had the road shut down. So apologize for being back late.
We're just mad about the buffalo part.
Yeah.
We didn't get
Yeah.
to go.
Where's the keyboard? Does Aubrey have it?
Mhm.
Oh, no, you got it.
Oh, Aubrey, Peter was about to.
I turned it off and then I turned it back on. Starting Windows again.
Okay.
I was almost ready to show you the presentation. Aubrey turned the computer off, but,
It's Monday.
yeah. I did have I always take my tree book with me when I go out hiking on the Buffalo, and I've spotted my first Ozark chinkapin that I've ever seen out in the woods. They're not overly common, and I didn't know until reading in my book today that it's actually the only tree species that is only native to the Ozark region, so it doesn't have territory anywhere outside the
Does it have any fruit on
region.
it? Have you,
What's that?
did it have any seed pods?
No, it was a little bitty. It was actually right next to an overlook looking out on this built.
That's where they're usually found.
Yeah,
They're almost always re-sprouts from old stumps and things.
it's kind of what it looked like. Yeah, it wasn't very big. Had several legs coming up from it.
A neighbor has, a bunch of the non-rotting logs on top of the mountain that have been there for many years, because it's a member of the American chestnut family.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone's ever interested in trees, just a side note, I know the County Extension Service has a wonderful book. It's like a manual, and it helps you identify all different types of trees. I studied it as a kid when I was working with them, and there's some really cool stuff you can find out on how to identify just based on bark, leaves, all kinds of things. I know most people know that, but those who don't, pretty interesting. It's good bedtime reading.
Okay, wanted to give you all a quick update on the invasive species work that we've been doing in the Sustainability Department in conjunction with a stakeholder group and our Urban Forestry Department and our Parks and Recreation Department. Gave this same presentation to City Council at agenda session last Tuesday, and wanted to bring you guys up to speed on where things are at with the invasive species work. So if you'll recall, back in May, the City Council passed a resolution requesting that staff look at the need for developing an invasive species ordinance or law targeting the regulation of invasive plants in Fayetteville. And so we took this resolution and created a stakeholder group of 13 stakeholders consisting of several different interested either citizens or practitioners or scientists in the city of Fayetteville. Also got representation from a couple of our citizen advisory groups. We had a Urban Forestry Advisory Board representative on the stakeholder group. Andrew was so kind as to represent the Environmental Action Committee on our stakeholder group. We did 4 meetings where we talked about various aspects of invasive plants, looked at the need for invasive species from an economic perspective and from an ecological perspective. We also looked at what other communities have done related to invasive species. We really leaned heavily on the stakeholders to help us identify which plant species were the most harmful here in Fayetteville, and then also use them to help provide guidance on the policy recommendation that I'll share with you in a second, and help with our educational component that we're going to move forward with as well. So one of the things we did in the very beginning was really try to ground the group in terms of what is an invasive plant, and we looked to the USDA to help us define invasive plants. And essentially they're plants that meet two definitions, or 2 pieces of a definition. They have to be non-native to the ecosystem, so they're not from around here, if you will, and their introduction into the ecosystem has to be causing some economic, ecological, or harm to human health. Essentially, it's hazardous to the environment that it's been introduced into. So in trying to evaluate the actual need for invasive species, we first looked at some resources to try and determine the economic impact of invasive species, and you can see one source we found cited $35 billion a year in nationwide damages and removal costs associated with invasive plants. Found another program in Georgia where they're paying landowners between $150 on the, I believe it was $250 an acre they were paying landowners for the first treatment of invasive species, and then $150 an acre on a second treatment for removal of invasive species. This was under a program in Georgia from 2008, 2009, 2010 period where they used some ERA money to fund invasive species removal. We looked at policies primarily that various states have enacted targeting invasive plants. You can see Texas has 31 plants that are banned for sale, transport, and planting in the state of Texas. Arkansas only has 4 plants that are banned statewide under similar rules. Few communities, Chicago and some counties that also have lists of banned plants. One of the things we found overarching to all of the policies that various cities, states, and counties had enacted is that education was key to the program being successful. It's one thing just to say a plant's illegal, but you've really got to go beyond that and educate the public on why it's harmful to the environment, and once established, what the proper way to remove that particular plant would be, and then what an appropriate plant to replace it with would be. We also spent some time looking at more localized impacts of invasive plants, and found a couple of examples to help ground the costs associated with invasive plant removal and control here in the Fayetteville area. Recent Lespedeza removal out of the Westside Wastewater Treatment Plant that cost a little over $1,300 to complete. You all are, I'm sure, familiar with and been following Greedy Goats and their work in a couple of our parks. They've also been active on several parcels of private property around Fayetteville. The cost to hire Greedy Goats to come out and munch on invasive plants is $3,000 an acre per treatment. And then in 2014, our Parks and Recreation Department managed $31,000 worth of volunteer labor to do invasive plant removal on parks within the city of Fayetteville. So certainly there is an economic impact here in Fayetteville. Yeah, question?
I was going to ask just real quick, on the Lespedeza, like, is that a real specific species? Because there's a bunch of different kinds, aren't there?
There are 2 that have been identified by our stakeholder group as being invasive to our area and particularly harmful to our area.
I was just curious because I was thinking that might be kind of a broad.
Yeah, and I don't recall.
It got species specific.
Yeah, I don't recall which Lespedeza species it was that they had at the wastewater plants.
Doesn't Jennifer show up? Is
it Lespedeza?
No, that's all right. I wouldn't know, but I just was curious because I.
But one of the things that's important is to actually give a complete specification of the names, because as in honeysuckle, when you say honeysuckle, we're getting rid of honeysuckle. Okay, there's bush honeysuckle that's non-native, and John's got it, and we've got it all over town, and we've got Japanese honeysuckle, which is a vine that just covers other plants and wraps around the stems of young trees and kills them eventually. But we've also got 2 species of wonderful native honeysuckle vines that, you know, they're just going to grow where you plant them or where they're growing in nature. I mean, I show you some places they grow wild, and I dread, you know, something's going to be built where a lot of native plants are all the time. But if people, okay, by example, when the goats were out there, the first night that it was on TV, and they showed Wilson Park and the goats eating, well, guess what? This one goat, close up, he was eating a native honeysuckle vine.
He didn't know the difference, did he?
You did.
I bet it'll
There.
grow back,
I didn't
though.
train.
Oh, it'll come back with the root. They're all coming back with
I think what Aubrey's getting at, and what I was kind of thinking is, and maybe the policy is more specific and all that. You're probably getting to that, but yeah, it probably needs to be fairly specific because there's some Lespedezas out there that.
They're just
Maybe
beautiful.
And it was.
wildflowers.
Peter will get to that,
Yeah,
but I mean, it's,
okay.
this is to the city council, so it's more generalized to that
Okay. group.
Yeah, when we get down to legislating, we're using the scientific
Okay.
names. Yeah, most definitely. So also, we found several examples of species that provide poor habitat for our native wildlife. They choke out plants, many that create dense monocultures, particularly in our understory layer. The bush honeysuckle and the privet are particularly notorious for doing that. A few that have been known to kill trees, some plants that are poisonous to wildlife and also toxic to humans. And so those are kind of all the impacts that were identified as being caused here locally by some of the identified invasive plants. So back to the definition, the stakeholders felt pretty strongly that yes, there are several invasive plants that are non-native to our ecosystem, and several of those plants are causing a problem here in Fayetteville. And so what we did is, and again, this has common names for more of a simplicity of showing the plant's sake. What we did is we asked our stakeholders, many of whom were, very are horticulturalists or are botanists or own nurseries, so they're very well versed in
There's a lot of PhDs and master's degrees
yeah.
fields in there.
Knew these plants quite well. We gave them a list of 37, started with a list of 37 plants that had been identified as invasive either in Arkansas or Texas or Oklahoma or Chicago or somewhere with a similar environment to Fayetteville, similar climate to us or a touch state. And we said rate all these plants in terms of the ones that are the most damaging to our environment here in Fayetteville. And so that is the number they gave those plants is plotted on this up and down y-axis. So 0 to 5, how invasive is the plant? 5 is the most invasive, 0 is the least invasive. And then what we did is we said, okay, even if a plant is really, really invasive, if it's completely unavailable, you can't get it anywhere, well, maybe it's not really being introduced all that much anymore. And so perhaps if it's not accessible, then it's really not worth creating a rule on that particular plant. So what we also did is we plotted the availability of each of these plants, and that's our x-axis. So is it available in a store or online? Is it just available in a store? Is it just available online? And what we found is, what we felt like, with the help of the stakeholders, is that the plants clustered to the top right of being plotted on this graph were the ones that were most in need of some sort of regulation addressing their continued introduction and already establishment here in Fayetteville. And so everything above and to the right of the pinkish white area, pinkish red area, excuse me, there's 18 plants there. Those are the ones that we put on the official Fayetteville invasive species list. And I can read those off for folks if they can't, if anybody can't read those.
It's hard to see that one way up in the corner.
Top right is Chinese privet, and next underneath it is Bradford pear.
Yeah, I got that.
And then English ivy's below that.
Okay.
So there's 18 plants on that list, and those 18 are the ones that the stakeholders again felt like were the most damaging to the environment, but also had some degree of availability, with the exception of the multiflora rose, kudzu, and the cerveza lespedeza. But still, they felt like those were well established enough that they were worth legislating on and educating on as well.
Peter, is there any concern that addressing the biggest offenders like that will elevate the others over time? Whether they'll be maybe unavailable now, but will demand increase over anything like that?
That's a good point.
I mean, not that somebody's out creating a market just for evil invasive plants, but
yeah, I mean it's difficult to predict what can happen. But in some cases, some of the state laws on plants that have been passed have been an attempt at getting ahead of certain plants before they've become problems. But for the most part, these were ones that either had some degree of establishment or were prevalent enough that they felt like they need to be educated on and need to be limited in terms of access to the plants.
It was interesting. I was at one of the big box stores this weekend, and burning bush was something that they had.
Yeah.
And it was on sale, and they were trying to sell more of it. It was actually on sale, not just for sale. And I told the plant person in that area that it was on the invasive species list, and they had no idea, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the one person we really couldn't find for the group was someone from Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, you name it, the big box stores, a buyer, a representative buyer for that,
Right.
you know, to actually give us insight into, because their seasonal purchasing is a lot different than someone, say, from Westwood.
Sure.
And obviously, it's a lot hard to get in touch with those people, so it's hard to find those.
We had representation from Westwood Nursery and White River Nursery, but we were unable to get
Oh.
a big box retailer
That
representative.
that was one of my questions at city council, but I thought we had reached out to them. They
We
they
had,
didn't
we did reach
respond.
out, but
Okay,
we were
they didn't
unsuccessful in
respond.
landing
Yeah.
anyone.
Okay.
And you can't just go into the Lowe's, I mean, those people don't know what's
Yeah.
coming up,
In fact, we
you
had
know,
a, we had
season
a
to season.
person identified from Walmart, and
Yeah.
for whatever reason, that individual was advised, not to participate.
I wonder why that was.
Can't,
Not
can't say
So
why.
Peter, could you tell me the 4 banned plants in Arkansas?
Oh, I can try. Purple loosestrife, none of them are these, because
Oh.
they're already banned statewide. Purple loosestrife, do you know the other 3, Aubrey?
Well, bull thistle listed over here, and the, what's the other, nodding thistle that,
It wasn't any of the ones that were the 37.
I don't believe there's any of the plants that are on this list.
So is that a different part of the state, or they just aren't, or you don't know?
Well, they're already banned statewide, so we didn't feel like it was,
yeah.
we didn't need to take any action here
Oh,
at Avon.
well-
And the nurseries aren't allowed to sell them.
It's already
so-
illegal
So
to
that-
sell,
Okay, so
transfer.
that means the nurseries
Are they-
cannot sell them and so.
Are they like specifically agricultural nuisances and stuff, is that?
One's, I believe, agricultural weed, 2 are aquatic, and the purple loosestrife is, I don't know how to describe purple loosestrife. I'm not overly familiar with them, in all honesty.
Could it be toxic? Could that be, you don't know?
No, I'm not sure, it's just an invasive, but, yeah, they're good loose stripes also, so.
I was curious.
So I have a question, you know, looking at the stakeholders that we did talk to, and I know we got into some of this at the city council meeting, you know, especially in the big box stores, not selling some of these very invasive species is not gonna hurt the big box stores, because most people don't want them in the first place, and the people that do don't know what they're buying, and if they did, they wouldn't get it.
Yeah.
But what about the local nurseries? How much resistance did we hear from them about selling that Bradford pear, or the bush honeysuckle, or the, you know, the Chinese privet? Are they very adamantly wanting to keep those as their options?
They, generally, the feedback we got was yes, they wanted to keep them as options because there was, you know,
Demand.
for the most part, they tried to talk customers out of buying a Bradford pear, or other, you know, generally considered invasive plants. But in the rare circumstance where they were unable to persuade a customer to go with a dogwood, or go with a redbud, or go with some other similar type of tree, they just had to have that Bradford pear. They wanted to have a dusty old ratty-looking Bradford pear off in the corner to satisfy that customer's need, and so that they wouldn't lose the sale and potentially lose that person as a future customer. So they wanted to keep that, and that's why they were generally against any sort of legislation that banned the sale of any of these.
Okay,
Any
so
hard lines.
here's kind of my thought process, because I know there's been a lot of pushback against legislation that prevents the sale. Well, we can still incentivize people to not buy something by taxing the things, maybe into a fund to prevent invasive species or to mitigate invasive species if they are planted. Is that something that the committee considered, is, you know, having a tax on invasive species that are purchased and planted in the city?
It was I recall that we did some early policy analysis, and creation of a tax or a fund was a sort of a high-level policy analysis solution that an academic study we had found presented as a solution. We didn't find, that I recall, any communities that had enacted successfully such a fund or a tax, and so we did not, without having a successful model to look at, we didn't actively pursue that. I think what we might hear in response to such a proposal from the local retailers would be the similar feedback that we received about not being able to sell those plants would be if there's a tax on that plant here in Fayetteville, then the customer could just go to Springdale and buy that plant tax-free, and and still come back to Fayetteville and plant it and get around get around that tax, and thereby costing the Fayetteville retailer the sale.
Because, I mean, Westwood has locations outside the area.
If, a Bradford pear, what are those for a good size one? Under $100? I mean...
They were a little more. I remember that Westwood
I've seen them
said...
for like
I've seen them
$80.
for $99, I've seen them for $59.
Westwood said they've had two sitting for the whole season. That it's been, like I said, just sitting in the corner.
I was going to say, I mean, I don't think a surcharge, I guess, would be a better way to put it, not a tax, but for purchasing that plant of $5-10 that goes into a fund would actually hurt anything. Probably wouldn't stop the sale. I mean, I certainly wouldn't drive to Bentonville or Rogers or Springdale, but of course I wouldn't buy one in the first place.
Right. But Bradford pear was probably one of the least, I'd say, talked about as like threatening at the current stage, but they admitted Chinese privets asked for, people come in from other areas like, oh, I want privet right now.
Well, I spent Sunday with a chainsaw cutting out privet after I learned that it was invasive, and but I guess I don't see the top four. I'm looking at the top four as being the most invasive. I don't know how big of a pushback we would get back from actually banning those four being planted in the city of Fayetteville. Planted, sold, any of it.
How do you even?
I mean, retailers wouldn't be able to sell them. People would be able. That'd be a code violation if they planted them. I'd be supportive of that.
How would you even enforce it?
Well, if someone gets, someone has their neighbors,
Tell all the neighbors.
Chinese privet starting to grow into their yard, and it's been
So much of the
planted,
enforcement is going to have to happen after we are able to even eradicate or remove so much there that we have, and that's one of the harder parts of the goals.
You're taking responsibility the way you would try to do it. It's like, what? Yeah.
But if they're not available at the stores, I mean, you just think about your Saturday if you're going to go planning, or if I know a lot of this is large scale construction when they're doing large projects, but if you think about going out on your Saturday and where you're going to go buy plants and stuff, if you're the person that's going to Lowe's or Walmart or wherever, if they can't sell those items to you, then you're probably not going to go home with them.
Right, you just buy something else.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless you're at a Springdale nursery or...
Maybe, yeah.
Right.
And that's probably the biggest challenge to that, is that you don't have to go far to circumvent that. And from a taxation standpoint, I wonder how many people would even notice that they were paying extra. They just, if we're using it as a deterrent.
I think that'd be a challenge, because that's like setting up a bottle bill or setting up a, fee. Somebody's gonna have to administer it and keep that money, manage the money. That sounds like a challenge for a few plants.
Taxes are usually pretty generally easy to administer. It's just I was just with that thinking of a way to help Fayetteville offset some of the costs that we're going to incur by helping to remove some of these in some areas in the future, hopefully.
I think the biggest part of what we talked with, especially with Westwood, is the education at the point of sale and preventing. I mean, and they admitted that they try to sway people to other things, but a possible thing in the future is any kind of media that would actually go on the sale of those. So it's like, a black dot that goes on I'm not saying that would be the case, but, something on that sticker that says, oh, this is a non-native. So people have that stigma if they're trying to buy it.
Yeah.
So there's various ways of prevention without
that
antagonistic, deterrent of a tax or a ban that so many people are always, say the word ban and people just get their amendment rights up going,
And the paper got really excited about it, but their article made really not a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Imagine
that. Sorry, Peter, I interrupted. I got off on a tangent.
So, 18 plants, and what is currently being recommended by the stakeholder group are ordinance amendments to Chapter 177 in the Unified Development Code as part of the City Code. That's the chapter that regulates landscape regulations associated with new development. The proposal is to add the list of 18 plants and then to prohibit the planting of those plants on any project that requires landscape plan review. And then associated with that would be species-based educational effort. This is an example right here with the invasive plant on the left, creeping euonymus, scientific name there, Aubrey, so there's no confusion on what we're talking about. And then a recommended replacement plant to the right.
Oh, but so Carolina jasmine's okay?
Yes.
Because I love Carolina
Right.
jasmine, okay.
And there's other
Right,
alternatives.
Same thing.
And that's a very impressive media in person. I mean, Lee did a great
Yeah,
job
I'll show you
putting
a
that
blow-up
together.
of a
It's
different page here in just a second. So the impact of what this ordinance proposal would be is it would not allow these invasive plants to be, these 18 invasive plants to be installed in any new developments in Fayetteville by prohibiting their planting with any project that requires landscape plan review. That would include large-scale development plans, any subdivision plan, any small site improvement plan, or anything else that requires a building or grading permit except for single-family home construction. So everything essentially but single-family home construction will no longer be allowed to plant these plants as part of
So
part of their
apartments
landscape
and all
programs.
that are,
Mhm. Yep.
okay, good.
Exactly. What they would not do, what the proposal would not do.
Sorry, I didn't mean to, I was just gonna ask, so in like a subdivision plan or site improvement plan, do they actually specify what plants they're gonna plant? And does that have to be approved?
It depends on how the development is done. Sometimes they just subdivide and the landscaping is done on the individual lot level for individual homes. So those would actually be exempt in that circumstance. But if it were done as a large plan, all the homes were built at the same time, then the landscape requirements would apply.
So it would still be possible to build a neighborhood without having to fall into this, depending on how it was worked.
Yeah, depending on how it actually
But there is a manual of, a list of plants to pick from right now, like
Right.
approved things for small,
Right.
large, big, and
Right.
this would change that a little.
Yes, so there's a landscape manual that is the kind of the how-to of Chapter 177, and we're going to do a revamp of that landscape manual to go along with this to basically make it easier for folks to plant and use the right thing rather than the wrong thing. So what would the ordinance amendments not do? They would not limit the purchase or sale or possession of any of those 18 plants in Fayetteville. It would not restrict homeowners from planting the plants, and it would not require anyone to remove the established plants. What also would go along with it is education on the negative impacts of the 18 plants, helping citizens know how to identify them, how to remove them properly, and then non-invasive alternatives. And here's a blow-up again of the species-based educational component. Again, the Chinese privet on the left, the invasive plant, and then a recommended non-invasive replacement plant, black hog viburnum, and then with several other alternative, non-invasive alternatives below. But the plan, and actually we have developed 18 of these educational sheets, one for each of the plants.
I think that's really cool.
That is
Are
awesome.
those online already, Peter?
They're not, no. Since it hasn't been, nothing's been approved yet, nothing online.
Wonderful.
Can I ask one other quick thing on invasives? Was part of one of the reasons they're considered invasive, or because birds spread the seeds and those kind of things? Is that
Well,
also one of
that I don't know that that's necessarily the reason it's considered invasive, but that does happen to be the way a lot of the identified invasives tend to spread.
So like somebody's got a single Bradford pear in their yard and it's pretty, and they think, oh well, that's not invading anywhere, but the fact is the birds might be spreading it, and that might be creating hundreds in some field somewhere.
Yeah.
Same way with, like, you might have the bad kind of honeysuckle, and you think, oh well, it's contained, it's not going anywhere, but is it the same thing where the seeds could still be spreading, you just don't realize it?
Right.
Okay.
Well, that's the case on the honeysuckle vines, the Japanese honeysuckle flowers all along the stem, every pair of leaves, whatever, and on the native honeysuckle, both species, the yellow and the reddish orange ones, they only bloom at the end of the stem. So they make like one seed for every 100. It's on a comparable length
Okay.
of, so it's, other things do the same. I mean, that's,
Okay.
And my question is there any way, any kind of incentive for people who have some of these invasive species in their yard to, if there was some kind of incentive or reward or something along those lines? I mean, that's gonna cost money, but still thinking in terms of somebody goes in and gets rid of their Bradford pears and puts up something else. It just seems like it would be nice to be able to recognize people in a positive way if they did things like that.
Yeah, one of the programs that the Urban Forestry Advisory Board runs is a sustainable landscape competition. Every May, they award one residential property owner and one commercial property owner inside the city of Fayetteville the sustainable landscape competition winner. And some of the previous winners have been folks who have done invasive removal and reestablishment of native plants.
And what kind of reward do they get for that? Recognition?
They get recognition, they get a sign and actually a really nice plaque to display in their yard as well.
So that just seems like some way to recognize, and also for people to learn from other people what they've done.
Right. And they do tours as well of the sites.
Peter, I have one other question. So I know that after this passes, a lot of things are probably going to be set in motion, but what about those people who don't have the tools to get rid of invasive species, or maybe they're elderly and don't have the actual physical capability of working to get rid of invasive species? Are we going to offer any kind of assistance, or are we proposing, is staff proposing that?
No, there's not any, I think the city's efforts and staff's efforts primarily at this point have been trying to deal with the established invasive species on city-owned property. There's been a lot of energy put at Wilson Park recently. The north half of the park has been predominantly invasive species free for several years now, but the south half still has some areas of honeysuckle and privet thicket and along the creek. And the greedy goats have been out there a couple of times. So I think, there's plenty of other city-owned property that still has establishment of very much established invasive plants.
Private property, to answer Alan's question, that might be the kind of thing where if somebody was all fired up, you could get a volunteer group, a church group, a Boy Scout, something like that, and do it on a Make a Difference Day or something like that, and go in there and, make a project out of it.
And the weed, what do they call the weed wrenches? The weed
wrench.
Yeah, deal that you guys have one with Omni, is that right? And I believe the Fayetteville Public Library now has either one or two that are available for checkout.
Well, I was just wondering if, how we, as the city, administer this CBD, Community Building Development Grant, CBDG. I can never say that right.
I know what you're talking about,
Community Development Block.
Yeah, I can never say it in a row correctly. I'm just wondering if there's something that we could end up creating like that for special situations, maybe where an area's gotten too overly grown with things. Really to be sustainable in the area, you have to address those hot spots. So
it's certainly a good point, because invasive species do not recognize property lines. They will leapfrog.
I've got a quick
question.
Story. I can't take any credit, but I'll tell a story. At the Vandergriff and McNair school property, they're putting in a mountain bike trail, and they turned that into an Eagle Scout project. So the Ozark Off-Road Cyclists and the assistant principal of Vandergriff, Jason, I don't know his last name, he's been real instrumental. And they had an Eagle Scout, and several moving parts, came together, and they, so the Eagle Scout, you got a whole gang of Boy Scouts, and, he helped, part of his project was to help organize it with a lot of guidance. And so they cleared out a lot of honeysuckle, and, I'm not sure what the other thorny vine was, if it was something else, but, they cleared most of the trail, area and sight lines and stuff. And this is a few months ago when they did that. I think they worked like 5 weekends on that. And I wasn't part of that, but I went by afterwards. And I mean, they had, truckloads and truckloads of stuff lined up that they drug out of the woods. That I guess, I don't know, the city or who was gonna come by and pick that up.
Yeah, we worked with them to take that away for free.
Okay.
And grind it up and put it
So
in
I
a
went
mulch
back
pile.
this weekend. They had another work day, and so, we went back and they had, there's about 30 or more that, volunteers that showed up. So we were removing stobs and actually, working the actual path and stuff like that. But they had done huge amounts of work already before we got there, you could tell. But anyway, that was, invasive honeysuckle vine and some other vines. So there's some efforts out there.
Youth labor would be perfect.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Volunteer labor.
but the youth are quick,
Yeah.
So
Go
that
right.
brings up a good point, though.
More energy.
Yeah.
When you get into a big removal project on that, you can quickly exceed your, the city's willingness to haul your stuff off for free. Are there waivers for the amount of, isn't there a limit on how many times they'll come and do a big bulky brush haul off at my curb?
I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I know they'll do it, but I'm not sure at what point it becomes
Yeah,
not free anymore.
how bulky, 2 or 3 cans with cut off limbs in them.
I know when I've called, they're like, is
They'll-
it a pickup truck or a dump truck?
Yeah.
Because I can't estimate cubic
Yeah.
tons
'Cause
of.
what we sent to deal with the stuff out at Vandergrift was,
Open
a
top
flatbed
roll-offs.
with a,
Oh,
pick
the
that,
grapple.
Yeah.
could grab it and pick it up, so.
For personal use, the rule of thumb I've heard is, you can get 2 free recycling bins.
Yeah.
So you put those side by side, about as high as that whole volume. If you have the same amount and
That's
brush.
one branch.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be really.
And you have to cut them a certain length, otherwise they won't be taken. I mean, you'll drive by so many properties that just have this whole table length, and they just sit there for months.
They've been ridiculously
Yeah.
generous with my bad behavior on the curb, and
4x4 bundles.
all sorts of things will get hauled off if you put it out there and just cross your fingers. But there is there's a
Yeah.
policy limit on that, and I know that I've had exceeded my capacity just on the stuff that grows at my fence line a couple of times, so.
But it would be nice to have a coordinated, like they do the ward bulky pickups, if you had that for maybe a couple of times a quarter instead of season, or
I imagine
It
if
would
you
fit
go
into
neighborhoods
that
could get
project.
together and do it.
Yeah, and I like the idea of taking away the limitations on, for invasive species on what the city does pick up, if they're already coming out, and maybe giving people a few more numbers of pickups for that, because we
Sometimes
are trying to help.
it's not a matter of needing an incentive to get it done, it's just needing assistance to get over the
Sure.
hurdle.
Truck.
Yeah.
Such a big job.
It's huge.
Yeah, it's certainly a special phone call because, the truck that normally comes around and picks up your yard debris is just, an older style trash truck with a compactor on the back of it. So, large volumes are not gonna be able to physically fit
Yeah.
into that vehicle.
So have you decided, are you going to ban this, or are you just going to do this through education? I'm thinking in terms of the editorial I read, which their suggestion was to, let people do what they want and teach them so that they'll do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the way you're going, or?
That always works.
I mean, I'm summarizing
Every
that,
time.
but anyway, or are you going more for the,
So as I said, the proposal is to ban the 18 plants.
so you
on
are,
anything
that is the
requires
proposal,
a
okay.
landscape plan, review.
So with the way you're doing it, but not with individuals?
So
Right.
Lowe's
More,
could
okay.
still sell it
So
if they
just the
wanted.
way it was, okay, okay.
Maybe.
That's
Unless anyone wants to bring it to the State Department and try to go through that
Well, of
nightmare.
course, now, the state had how many bans?
Four.
Okay, 4, that's
But you saw that list, there's only about 7, 8 states that even had any ban. I mean,
Right.
No, that wasn't a complete.
it wasn't a complete list,
Okay.
but I mean, it's just showing that it's a difficult thing. And the peer-to-peer reviews you guys found, it's very difficult to find media. Chicago and Portland were like 2 of the only places.
Portland's is voluntary, it's not even.
And
They're
Portland's
voluntary, okay.
Really, Chicago and the 2 counties were the only good comps that we found outside of statewide
What about,
legislation.
what about other cities in northwest Arkansas? Anybody else interested in doing this, or is this just Fayetteville?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
We're used to that.
I know. Little help from our friends.
Be a trend.
Well, Bentonville's already on board, they're just tearing down everything and building new neighborhoods.
Yeah, trees and all. Trees and all.
Fill it with red dirt.
Yep.
All right.
I think that, yep, that's all I had on the basic plant.
Thank you. I think it's a wonderful project.
Peter, do you want to get us an update on, or give us kind of your update on what we had talked about as far as new agenda items?
Sure, yeah. So, I had emailed this out as part of preparing the agenda for this meeting. But moving forward, we're gonna institute an attempt to be as standardized as possible with an agenda setting, policy for the meeting. And that policy is gonna be for me to send out a request to all of you, 2 weeks prior to each, Environmental Action Committee meeting, so that'd be on a Monday. Send out a request for agenda items, and that request would be for you to send me, what's the title of your agenda item, what is, any kind of backup information or documentation on that agenda item, and then for you all to get those items to Alan and myself by 1 week ahead of the Environmental Action Committee, which again would be on a Monday. And then after that, between that Monday and that Thursday, Alan would review those items and determine which ones are appropriate for the agenda, and then give me guidance on which items to include on the Environmental Action Committee's actual agenda. And then by the Thursday ahead of each meeting, I would then send that agenda out to you all so that you'd have that information in preparing, and any backup documentation with those agenda items so that you can be prepared for
And
an actual Environmental Action Committee meeting.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's okay.
I was just going to say, and when you send those in, if you will include about how much time you'll need.
Sure, yeah.
I know
Great
that
point.
in the next 6 months, we're going to be seeing a lot of rezonings probably. And we're going to be seeing some in very environmentally sensitive areas come through with rezoning requests. So I know the council will be sending them here. And I want to save some. I want to know what y'all would like to see on the agenda so that we can spread those out over the month. So that when we do have those rezonings, we have time to discuss those too. It's going to be very important that we get at least some input, whatever that may be, on those subjects. So that was one reason for this.
I think as a general rule, the rezonings seem to be a hot topic. They have been before with us, and we don't hear about them unless we go out of our way to find out about them. So if there's some way
On
to,
every single
I'm pulling for
city
it.
council agenda.
yeah,
And I'm keeping my eye on a few of them right now to see if they make it that far. So
like the Enduring Green Network, I still have a hang up on that. Like Aubrey was talking about the deer and the foxes and stuff, and we keep building, and they're not gonna have any place to go back and forth to the woods, if we keep cutting them off. And so I just, I have some heartburn about the high-density development, along Rupel Road and places like that,
112.
Yeah, where we're gonna isolate, these areas. And it'd be nice to still have a little flow through the Enduring Green Network instead of, having a little green spot here and a green spot there, So I don't know what to do about it, but those are concerns of mine, and I think ought to be of the committees, I still, and I know we've talked about it some, but I still don't know what our role is as far as the Enduring Green Network. It seems like that's on our list, but I don't think we have any authority or...
Well, to clarify on that, I had asked everyone on the committee if they wanted to send me a list of their concerns and things they would like to see, and I only got 1 or 2 responses on that. And so when I get up to 75% response from the committee, we'll talk about it. But I don't want to have a conversation with only input from a couple of people first. So, y'all can always do that, and then when we get enough feedback, we'll have a real conversation on it. So we can be very structured, because when it comes to creating zoning categories and suggesting that to the council, I want it to be very thorough. So I definitely do want to take that up, though.
And then as far as the way the agenda will work, as far as like new business, will there still be an opportunity, like, let's say there's something hot happens over the weekend right before the meeting, I mean, we can still talk about it, can't we? I mean, we don't have to wait a month to get it on the agenda to talk about it, or what? I mean, I don't know how formal it needs to be.
This is just really to provide some structure for some upcoming issues, so.
Okay.
I think you can always, you know, you can put that request into Alan, and certainly if it's an item for announcement, certainly appropriate, but in terms of adding it to the formal agenda, then it will be this call as to whether or not to do that. So just to kind of review the schedule going forward, you all's next meeting is scheduled for Monday, November 16th. So 2 weeks prior to that would be Monday, November 2nd. I would send out that agenda request on November 2nd with a request for those agenda items to myself and Alan by the 9th, which is the following Monday. And then we would work to get that agenda developed and out to you all by the 12th in advance of that Environmental Action Committee meeting on November 16th.
Peter, you presented to the city council last week for the invasive species. Is that going to be on the agenda for November 3rd?
That's the plan currently.
Okay. Well, I'd advise, since we're not going to see each other before then, to come to that city council meeting
It's on November 3rd.
on Tuesday the 3rd.
And we can even do this, if y'all would like to have a letter in the city council agenda packet. You know, if someone wants to make a motion in a second in support of that, I definitely would take that to the council.
I will make a motion to be.
I'll second.
That we will be in support of the invasive species
Okay.
plan.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Peter, if we want to put together a letter, I'll sign it and I'll send it in to Sandra. And,
Okay.
she can send that out to
Does anybody want to take a first stab at drafting that letter?
No?
I think it'll be about 2 sentences.
We love it.
We support it.
Yeah, right. Do you have any opposition to it, really? I mean, the meeting, will there be a line of people that are going to oppose this, or have you heard much about it?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any opposition, but that doesn't mean that there isn't any.
There's usually opposition from one or two people on
It's
pretty
gonna
much everything.
it's gonna have to do with banning. People are gonna talk about banning something, or and it will happen. So
Okay.
There was-
Yeah,
you know
you're
the
right,
usual
you're right.
suspects
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
gonna
There was more
rally.
conversation just about the study than you would
Yeah.
have believed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I would expect that if there are discussions, it will be more about the integrity of the data if they try to attack the argument for invasive species, which I think the data is pretty solid in and of itself personally, but it's sustainability, and a lot of people don't like to grasp that, but most people on the city council, I believe, do, so.
Is there some kind of Bradford Pear Society that's kind of front desk or something?
You never know. You never know.
I think it's more, you don't tell me what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Even though it's a positive economic boon if you
Mhm.
you remove and replant with
Right.
native stuff, it will save you money in the long term.
Right, but
Yeah.
it's,
But convincing people of long-term investing is, something that's unthought of.
Well, even those stores that sell some of these things can sell more of the right replacement. Just, there's some reasonable replacement, like all these things.
Like, I've had good luck, like at Westwood Gardens, for example, because every time I go in, I ask, what do you think will work? I've got shade here, I got sun there, and how many hours of sun? They'll ask me, they try to help guide me to buy the right stuff, so they're good about that kind of stuff.
they are good about that.
And, so I think,
Sure.
I believe if I went in there saying, hey, I kinda like a Bradford Pear, they say, well, let me show you this instead. I think that's, that's what they do, because, I think they're good at that. Now, the big boxes may not be quite as, well educated internally, they sell what they got to sell, whatever the buyer. It's all about.
They may not see it being sold until it's at the register and the person has no idea what
Yeah.
They probably get measured differently. They wanna sell, so that may be different, but I've had real good luck with the local guys.
Well, thank everyone for their work on that. Andrew, we appreciate your input from the committee, and Peter, great job on that.
Yeah, very nice.
Peter and Lee did a phenomenal job with everything they did there. It was very well done.
What is the
We had
easiest,
good stakeholders, that's all I can say.
what's the easiest way to access the actual ordinance language?
It will be
Proposed.
in the draft city council agenda, or it should be in the draft city council agenda, which normally comes out on Thursday.
Thursday or Friday?
Thursday or Friday,
Yeah.
generally, yeah, of this
Friday's the latest. All right, Aubrey, I think you had one Halloween announcement, and then we'll,
Mhm.
I had a couple of little things.
Oh, first about the seeds, before I forget, as John Rule pointed out, he had sorted them, we came from over to the studio, and he was volunteered to put them in one big container. These are milkweed seeds. I'm giving you guys just about all I have this year on common milkweed. They're pretty rare around here. So please, if you don't plant them all, give them back or give them to somebody you know wants milkweed seed, because they just aren't common.
And they need to be in the sun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
And
At
these
least
don't need
half
to be
the sun.
not too wet, like the swamp milkweed. These need to be well drained.
Uh-huh.
And the
But they-
appropriate time to plant them is now, or in spring, or?
Well, it depends on whether you'll remember where you planted them.
I did not, but they came up and then I knew.
Then you knew, but what I'm saying is sometimes people put things out in the fall and then they weed out these things coming up. What is this? I know people do that.
Yeah.
You just
So,
put it loosely under a little bit of soil when you do plant it.
yeah.
Yeah, just plant them.
Or start them in a pot would be nice, or a little container and get them started and then put them out. It's a good idea.
So that.
But
the
these are
seeds-
really big leaves that will feed a lot of caterpillars.
Good.
And they are common to the north and east of here. They're just not common in Fayetteville.
And they need to go through the winter either in the refrigerator or
Yeah,
ground.
that's true,
Okay.
yeah.
Are they
Next,
Full sun, part sun?
full
full
sun,
sun?
but partial works for most everything. I mean, if it's at least half a day of sun on it.
It'll be fine, yeah. But it can take all sun, can't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
You got an extra bag for me?
Now, let's divide one of these, because I don't have, I just had this one envelope of them.
I rent.
And
so I
John,
will.
Andrew's like,
That's a
I've
good
got
point.
3 in my
Okay.
pocket.
That is a good point.
Well, thanks.
I have a separate process to get permission to plant something.
I mean, I really, see, I just pull these out of a box where I've got like a whole big box of basket flower seeds. I had somebody helping me. There's still more to get. And
Are you bringing us basket flower seeds also?
next time,
Okay, good.
I meant to do it today. I just pulled the wrong thing. I was out reading. I was in a hurry.
No, I'm glad you did this. Let me
So,
get both of them.
this is, right now, this is all I've got left. So what I'm saying, if you share some, I've got, maybe I've got another thing to put them in. But I promise you can get some later.
No, Andrew gave me his, I'm good.
Oh,
Thanks.
Yeah, he's
well,
got some.
I don't wanna deprive anybody that'll really plan on that. Okay, my birthday's Halloween, you knew that, right?
I didn't
No, I
know
didn't
that.
know your birthday.
I did
Explains
not
a lot
know
about
that.
Okay, well, that's the invitation.
My mother-in-law's is too.
Oh,
All of you guys and our friends of the environment who watch this program are invited to a birthday gathering on Halloween. But there's a Razorback game. Starts at 2 o'clock.
Homecoming.
Oh.
And
Halloween is-
I didn't set this, but my family set.
Birthday or the?
No, yeah,
You see Martin.
no, my family set the time, 2 p.m. So if you leave home and go out Highway 62 and you don't have a Razorback ticket, wait till the traffic goes down. Keep going past the Walmart out there and Frank Sharp's building, the old smokehouse, it now says Fayetteville Chill.
Mhm.
It'll be downstairs in the part that is now utilized by the Northwest Arkansas Land Trust.
Oh, it's
And we will have more pictures, more this, that, and the other, and I guess you can eat whatever my family provides, and drinks and of whatever is provided. And you don't have to stay too long, but I'd love for you to come and see this, that, and the other. And the Land Trust would love it if you come and make a donation to them. John Rule is got his property on Frog Bayou in the Land Trust. He's given them 151 acres, and he retained 5 acres around his cabin that he has lifetime. He can live there, and his family members. And so, and Lauren and I have a pass to visit. He says, even after I'm gone, I said, John, I don't think we'd go out there. We went out there several years in spring. But anyhow, that's something to consider if you don't have a raceback ticket. And I'll have basket flower seats there.
And that's in the afternoon, is that what you're doing?
2 to 4, 5, or 6, or whatever.
Okay.
Well, thank you for the invitation,
Seven.
and,
Yes, thank you.
and happy birthday, by the way, almost.
Yeah, it's just the number.
We're not gonna talk about
We're
the
not gonna
number, that's not, that's not
Well, the
necessary.
last time was 20 years ago. I had a birthday party, and I was 55 that year. So, do this one more time when I'm 95.
Okay, yeah. You got another 20 years after that.
All
I
right,
just
and
had
think
a
we
few
have
little quick announcements. I'll try not to drag us out too long. One thing, we had I think Elizabeth Bowen came and spoke to us, didn't she, from the Northwest Arkansas Regional Planning Commission on the Open Spaces Plan. They've got their draft out there now, online, and the summary is like 1 page, but the draft is like 75. It's big, and it's got appendices and all this kind of stuff. But anyway, they've been working on that for the better part of a year probably, and they spoke to us about it. So if you're interested, it's out there online, and I can help point you to it, but it's nwaopenspace.com is the website. And it's got a good executive summary, and you don't have to read all 75 pages. The summary at the beginning is like 1 page. But anyway, I won't get into all that, but it's out there now. And then this is kind of just kind of a little report. Dana Smith, you all remember, she and I have been working, and I shouldn't take any credit. McNair Middle School is getting ready to switch over to silverware from plasticware.
Nice.
And so the school district is systematically trying to go around and do that. So it's not me. I shouldn't act like it's me. But I'm going to help just because my daughter goes there. So we've got they've got a kind of a neat little exercise planned where next week they're going to collect all the plasticware every day from 2 lunch shifts to show the kids how much plasticware they go through in a week.
Yeah.
And then the Monday following, they're ready to roll out the new silverware, so we quit wasting plasticware. But I thought that was a neat way they're going to go about doing it. So they're making some posters and different things to, so the kids know. And we're going to have some volunteers there to help police the trash cans so that they collect.
Take some pictures and share. That would be really neat.
Yeah. So I'm kind of excited about that. That
Big
sounds
way
like
to
a neat
reduce.
thing.
Big way to reduce.
Yeah, I think that's neat.
That was the green team?
Yeah.
The green team doing it?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's mostly Dana and then Allison. I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but I don't know if she's like the food. I'm not sure what her role is.
Is it Allie?
Nutrition.
Oh,
Allie,
Yeah.
Allie,
Well,
nutrition
okay.
supervisor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she and Dana are driving that. Let's see, what else was I gonna tell you? Well, this is, normally you announce this, but the next round of mini grants is out there if anybody's got school projects and things. The Boston Mountain Solid Waste District has their $500 mini grant. I think it closes November 15th, right, the application period? So that's out there for the fall round. I think, let's see, one other little trivia thing. I noticed driving in, this group might be interested, that neighborhood market that's under construction on MLK, they're putting in the underground stormwater retention. So the big giant plastic structures, and that'll be covered with parking lot, but it's kind of neat. You don't get to see that very often, but if you drive by there right now, you can see it.
It is.
But it'll be underground storage for the water, retention. That's another way of skinning a cat. Anyway, it's just the announcements, that's all I got.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much for those. All right, appreciate everybody being here, great meeting, and we're adjourned. See y'all in November.